In this video we will do a automated Edge deployment in Horizon Cloud Next Gen, and we do that using Azure DevOps. So I have opened up my Azure DevOps screen, and there you see the release pipeline, which is something that you can compare with a task sequence or a runbook. So it contains all the actions that we want to execute during that sequence. So to start the pipeline, we have to create a new release, and we will be doing that just now. And then you can see the properties of the release pipeline, and you can see that it automatically starts the identity and access management part, which is a bit different compared to the other steps, which I will explain later on. We start with Active Directory configuration, and after that's done, you can see that the domain has been configured. You can see that from the icon there, and when we go into the details for the domain, you can see that all the details are configured for the domain. So when we continue, like I mentioned, identity and access management. So we're creating a connection between Horizon Cloud Next Gen and Azure. That's a manual process for now. So we're using a link which is generated from Horizon Cloud Next Gen, and we open that link in a browser, and then we authenticate using the credentials of the Azure AD tenant. Then we have to accept that firmware needs access to certain information, and once that's done, we have one part of the handshake finished. And then we continue with the handshake from the Horizon Cloud side. So we create a tenant, and once we do that, we have to authenticate again using our Azure AD credentials. Then it challenges in this case for multi-factor authentication, and once that's done, we have our handshake from that side. And we can see that it is connected. So we have identity and access management in place right now. Then we continue with configuring single sign-on, and single sign-on is used for users when they access desktops and applications, that they are not challenged again for their username and their password. So we did that just now, and then we start configuring the site. And once the site is created, we can see that in Horizon Universal Console. And then we'll continue with the provider instance, which is the connection that can be created between Horizon Cloud Next Gen and Azure. So it specifies the credentials that can be used, and then we can continue with the Edge deployment. And the Edge deployment is the actual deployment of the Edge gateway, which is a virtual machine in this case. It changed to Kubernetes later on, but in this video it still mentions the Edge gateway virtual machine, and we can see that it's being created in Azure. And then we can see the status within Horizon Universal Console, and you can see that it has a pending state, so we have to wait for that. Normally it takes about 6 minutes, maybe 7, to finish that process. And in the meantime, we can refresh the status to see if it has finished, and in this case it is finished. It's still disconnected, but that will change to connected in a couple of minutes. And we continue mapping the site to the edge. So you can deploy multiple edges within a site if you want. In this case it's just a single site and a single edge. So that's connected now, so our edge is part of the site now. And then we can continue using our deployment for the Unified Access Gateways. And the Unified Access Gateways are 2 appliances in this case that are being deployed within Azure. And you can see in Azure that those appliances are being created. So everything is being created, also load balancing and all those kind of things are automatically created. And once we refresh, we wait for it to be completed. And after some time, you can see that it is finished. And then one last step that we do is update the config file that we are using to deploy everything for the edge. So we update the config file with all the ID numbers of all the objects so that we can use it later on for making changes. And then when we look at the edge, we can see that the edge has been created and it gives all the specifics for that edge deployment, like the unified access gateways and so on.